My son chose his stepmother over me because I could not afford the life that he wanted. 10 years later, he wants to come back to my life and use me for my money. I have a son from my previous marriage. I got pregnant way too young at the age of 20, from my high school sweetheart, David. We got married at the age of 22 after we graduated college. David was rich. He didn't want me to work, so I was just a housewife. My son was the apple of my eye. I gave everything to him. He was my world. He and I were close, and I never doubted that I would not be alone in this world as long as I had him. That is until 10 years ago. I found out that my husband was cheating on me with a young colleague of his, and what is worse is that my 15-year-old son knew about it. He hid the affair from me. Imagine how broken I was. I was betrayed by two people I care most in this world. I asked him why he did that. Why did he hurt me? He responded that his dad told him not to. He bought him gifts to keep his mouth shut, and having a young stepmom made him popular amongst kids. I was blindsided when I learned my husband took my little boy to meet that woman. They made excuses that they went on a ski trip and they took his mistress with them. I felt like a fool at that time. In the divorce ruling, my son chose my ex over me. I was heartbroken. My son didn't want to visit me after it was all done. I even tried to reach out to him once he turned 18, but he just refused. At that point, I gave up and went on with my life. I would still get sad over the years, wondering how he was doing. I did move on and met someone who is a single father of 2 girls. I married him, and I got pregnant again a few days after our wedding. The pregnancy was a nightmare. I wanted to meet my son and tell him he would be a brother to a baby girl. The labor was painful. I almost died on the spot after giving birth to my daughter. I still wanted to meet my son, but I knew he did not want to see me, so I just gave up the idea. Over the years, the memories of him just became vague as I immersed myself in my new family. A week ago, I got a series of messages from him on my Facebook. He said he missed me a lot and wanted to meet me. It took me by surprise. Over the last 10 years, he has not contacted me. Now, he wants to see me? Why? I have been going over every possible reason. The worst part is that I do not feel excited about it. I know I should be over the moon as a mother, but I am not. My parents and husband know that. They have been pushing me to meet him. They say I need closure. After all, he is my son. But I don't know if I want to relive the same trauma, so am I wrong? I checked his social media last time 5 years ago. The last post I saw was with his stepmother, and the caption said, "To the best mom in this world." I felt heartbroken. I scrolled through his feed. There was no mention of me, as if I never existed in his life. Update: I finally met my son after so many years. He was not a boy anymore. He was a man. He looked taller than I remember. I asked him to meet me in a public park. I asked my husband to be somewhere near so he could see me. My son came 5 minutes after I arrived. He was all grown up. I won't lie. I wanted to cry at that spot, but I held my composure. He said hi to me, and I smiled. I commented that he has grown up and looks really nice. He just nodded. We sat down, and it was silent. I was expecting him to say something initially, but I finally asked what he was up to these days. He told me he was doing fine. He just finished college and is going to apply for grad school. I said that is great. Then, it was awkward silence again. He broke the silence and said, "You must be wondering why I contacted you." I replied, "You haven't tried to contact me for 10 years, but why now?" "I cannot help but wonder why you are trying to contact me when you told me years ago you don't want me near you because I embarrass you." His face got serious, and he said, "I know that, but I need something from you." He asked me for money, and the amount was $20K. He said he needed the money because he wanted to go to law school, but his father couldn't afford it because he lost a lot of his money a few years ago due to a loss in his business, and his company was bankrupt. He also had 3 more kids with his mistress wife. That's why they do not have money for him to attend grad school. It just sank my heart. After 10 years, I was finally meeting him. I was hoping that we could reconcile and he would understand what I have been through, or maybe my husband was lying to him. But no, he just wants money from me. I told him I could not give him money, not such a huge amount. He got defensive and kept asking why not. And then he asked, "Is this about Dad's affair? Geez, when will you get over it?" I asked him, "Why do you hate me? What have I done to deserve your hatred? Have I ever raised my voice? Have I ever hit you or said no to you? Then why? You always pushed me away when I tried to get closer to you. Why and what did I do to deserve it?" He took a deep breath and said, "You don't understand, Mom. You really expected me to come with you? You had nothing. At least my dad could afford the lifestyle I wanted, and my friends actually liked Carla, his stepmom. Everything was fine until you discovered his affair and my deal with Dad. I get it, you didn't hit me or scold me, but you were not able to afford the life I wanted." I asked him if he really thought his father's affair was actually the best way for any of us. I sacrificed a lot for him, yet he chose someone he only met when he was 14. He said he didn't want to discuss that because it was so long ago, and I should just drop it. I asked him why didn't he ever try to visit me. I even asked if it was his dad who tried to stop him or any other reason, or if it was something I did. I tried to reach out to him multiple times, but he never answered or tried to be there. I gave him space because I thought he was coping with the divorce, too. He yelled at me that I was really annoying. His dad didn't stop him. He didn't want to meet me because I lived in a small apartment with only 2 bedrooms. He hated living in a place like that, and he ignored me on his 18th birthday because my gift for him was pretty cheap and stale compared to what his dad and other people gave him. I agree. My gift was a box of his favorite cookies and an old vintage watch. I struggled a lot then, so I couldn't afford to buy him expensive stuff. But does that mean he should have ignored me like that? I had enough of it. I told him strictly that I would not be giving him money. I have spent years wondering where he is and how he is doing. He is still very disrespectful towards me. Throughout our conversation, he didn't even ask how I was. He just went straight to money. I was here hoping that we could move on. He had no idea how much of a mess I was when I learned the man I loved so much would betray me, and then my own son would lie to me for him. I thought we had a special bond. My head has been going through a lot of conclusions. Maybe his dad was lying to him about me. Maybe he was mad about something I did. But now I have the picture. I do not want to be his ATM. I wanted to be his mother even when he rejected me. I'm tired of feeling rejected, mistreated and taken for granted. He kept saying and getting even more defensive that I could not do this to him. I am ruining his life. I told him no. I cannot trust him to give so much money. He told me to cut the BS because he knew I had money, and now I could easily give him some. I told him no again and again. He, at one point, stood up and blamed me and screamed that I was ruining his life and that I owed it to him. I called my husband, who rushed towards me to keep my son away. I know now I should have trusted my instincts. I cried a lot when I came home. I lost him forever. Additionally, I discovered during our conversation that he was the first one to find out that my husband was having an affair, and he asked his dad to buy him a new phone in exchange for not telling me. I lost. My father disowned me for wearing red at my fiancé and stepsister's wedding. He was crushed when I refused to let him walk me down the aisle. I was always under the impression that my mother abandoned me, and that's what my dad told me, too. Karen had a daughter at that time who was 5, Mia. Mia and I were somewhat close growing up, but when we both hit puberty, our personality was different. Mia was the typical girly girl. She developed beautifully. She was basically like Cassie from Euphoria. She would get all the attention. Even my relatives preferred her more than me. I was a nerd. I was interested in sports but was told that I do not look bad and am very attractive and pretty. But I was overshadowed by Mia. My dad was an opportunist. Whenever he would see an opportunity for him to shine, he would take it. Even if it meant sidelining his daughter. He saw Mia got more attention than me, so he invested everything in her. I was quite jealous NGL, but I wasn't bothered because I believed I would be appreciated if I did something good. So, I studied hard and got into a prestigious university. That was the only time my father threw a party for me because I was the first in the family to do it. But Mia was jealous of it. Anyway, I started dating Tim during my last year of high school. He proposed to me when we were sophomores in college, but we decided to wait till our graduation. So one day during our semester break, I went to his home and saw him effing Mia. I was shocked. I remember I was crying and screaming at him. I could never forget the smirk on Mia's face. That's when I knew Mia was a bitch. So, my dad and stepmom knew about it. So guess what? My dad told me to forgive them. His logic is that Tim fell out of love with me, so he fell in love with your sister. You should give them your blessing instead of being petty. I shouted back, of course, you will say that because you cheated on mom. My dad and I had a screaming match. He told me he would disown me if I did not accept them and come to their wedding. I remember that I stormed off, and I cried for days. That's the moment I realized I was alone. My dad didn't care if I was dead or alive, but thank God I had friends who I could count on. I started therapy after a friend of mine pushed me to it. It did help a bit, but in my mind, I wanted some revenge. I wanted to be petty and make her regret it. I started thinking about what I could do. My initial plan was to wear white on her wedding day, but then I ran into Mia's ex, Jay. Jay and Mia were one of those couples who were on and off again. Mia exploited Jay a lot. They last broke up when Jay caught Mia flirting with one of his friends, but there was a lot of history. So, when Jay learns about Mia and Tim, he becomes slightly angry. He kept saying he wished he could just take revenge on all the times Mia had done him wrong. So, I had another plan. I asked him to be my +1 at her wedding. I know Mia still has feelings for Jay. It would piss her off, but we agreed that after that, we would part ways. So when the wedding came, I was not at the wedding party. My dad was cordial with me because I wasn't creating trouble. So I went to her wedding with Jay, wearing a bright red dress because I read that red means you slept with the groom. It was also over the top. I might have made some heads turn. When Mia saw me with Jay, her face turned pale. I was purposely being very touchy with Jay, whispering in his ears, touching his shoulder, and dancing with him very closely. I swear Mia was just as red as my dress. I was also asked to give a speech. I kept it short. Thank God I do not have more sisters, otherwise, Tim would have swapped Mia with one of them. You know he has a fetish of effing his fiancée's sisters behind her back. Mia and I were asked to leave. The next day, I was bombarded with messages and phone calls. I didn't pick any of them. As for Jay, he stuck to our deal, and I never saw him again. After the wedding incident, I found my mom because something told me she didn't abandon me. It wasn't hard to find her. I found her on Facebook, and we started chatting. She is married and has 2 boys, my half-brothers. I got the real story from her. She didn't abandon me. My father won the custody case. He used my mom's past substance abuse to take away her visitation rights, too. We reconciled, and I felt welcomed for the first time. I also met my stepfather and my 2 brothers. They are amazing people. Since then, I have regularly met them. 2 years after the wedding incident, I met a guy, Andy. We met during an alumni program in our college. He also went to our college, but he was 5 years my senior. We had a lot in common. He was kind, sweet, and very mature. He knows about my past and has been supportive. He was better than Tim in every other way. He was charming and had a higher position in his job. After 2 years, my sister contacted me out of the blue and told me she was pregnant and she now wants to bury the hatchets. I was very reluctant. I feared she would also try to steal Andy from me, but Andy reassured me he was not that weak. Honestly, I do want to meet Dad again. So, I gave it a shot anyway. I went to dinner with Andy, and to my surprise, Tim recognized him. It was later revealed to me that Andy was Tim's boss. This is the fact I didn't know. My dad and stepmom brought me to a corner and said that my relationship with Andy was unacceptable because I was trying to hurt my sister by dating Tim's boss. I told them to F off. My love life is none of their business. The dinner went sour. After that, I got a drunken call from Tim that he was very unhappy with my sister and that he wanted to escape. He never knew what he lost until he saw me with Andy. I ignored him. Then the phone calls didn't stop. First, my dad told me that my dating Andy was causing tension between my sister and Tim. I told him their marital life was none of my business. I got a call from my stepsister, who asked if she could come to my house and talk. I told her after the dinner party I wanted nothing to do with them. That TCH didn't listen. Instead, she went to Andy's office to convince him to talk to me. Of course, Tim saw this and accused her of trying to seduce Andy as he seduced him. Long story short, Andy had to fire Tim for his misbehave. This caused even more tension. Tim became verbally abusive towards Mia and said his life was ruined because of her. They separated. Tim is trying to figure out how he can handle the divorce proceedings. After the Tim and Mia drama, my dad suddenly appeared in my apartment. He was bawling his eyes out that he caught Karen sleeping with his male cousin. He was devastated. So, I told him what he said to me when Tim cheated on me. Karen fell out of love with you, so she fell in love with your cousin. You should give them your blessing instead of being petty. My dad was confused. I further told him, well, you taught me this, remember? When I was sad about Tim cheating on me with Mia, you told me to forgive them. My father's face was rotten. Now, I have 2 family members who are going through a divorce. Tim and Mia tried to reconcile, but eventually, they settled for divorce. My dad apologized to me for what he had done to my mom. I told him he deserved what was coming and I had no feeling left for him, not even pity. I might forgive him if the time ever comes, but I don't want him anymore. He will not be walking me down the aisle. Andy and I are recently engaged. We are having a small ceremony with just close friends and family. I was only planning for petty revenge but karma got them better.